Hello everyone and welcome back to the Victory Lap of Lothric. We are still here in Ashes of Ariandel. I realised after the last part we've still got a few bits and pieces we need to catch up on, and after the fun and franticness of all the PvP glory we had in the last 3 episodes, I thought we'd have just a nice short easy episode where we just chat about some lore from the DLC and we pick up some of the loose thread. There's still some items that I need to get, and there's still the boss Gravetender that I need to fight. So first off, I've just for the build at the moment, I've just gone something really simple, something that helped me go through the area and help me fight the boss. So just refined straight sword, Lothric Knight shield, and I've got the winged spear as my backup, and I've just got basic knight stuff and chain helm, prisoner's chain, fap, night ring, and milk ring to just help me push my damage up because I couldn't be bothered to farm any more chunks to get a +8 weapon. So. Yeah, so let's read some of the items that we picked up during our exploits in Ariandel. I was having so much fun with Pathfinder, doing all of our invader stuff that I didn't get a chance to read a lot of the items. So one of the key items we got was the Captain's Ashes, which gives us access to some of the Millwood Knight's equipment when we give it the handmade. So if we look at the item itself, it's a hand holding a white branch, and this. There are some. Ooh, one of my messages rated hooray. There are lots of parallels you can draw from the Millwood Knights to various parts of the game, and the strongest being Ulasil, given that they come from a wooded area, and like it looks like it's holding a white birch branch, which we know is an item that's related to Ulasil. However, sort of upon reading a lot of the item descriptions in my own time, I get the feeling that Millwood is its own distinct area, and it's not somewhere we've ever visited or we've heard about before. So it's a new faction that we're learning about. Umbralash, the captain of the Millwood Knights. With this, the Shrine Handmaiden will prepare new items. Long ago, when the Millwood Knights lost the forest they called home, they began a journey so long that even the thoughts of their sworn enemy washed away, replaced by a vision of a cold and brittle wood. So with this, it doesn't give us any information about what they lost, why they was, or who their sworn enemy was, or anything. So with this item, you could go, maybe Ulasil, because Ulasil was a wooded area, and all that stuff. But if we go and where's the weapons? We'll read some of their weapon descriptions. I still need to get the Millwood Great Bow, so we'll go get that and we'll read that. So where's the axe? Battle axe wielded by Millwood Knights. It's a blade. Its blade is blessed by the symbol of the ethereal oak, a hefty axe normally wielded by the mightiest of warriors. So ethereal oak, sort of again trees that conjures up images of Ulasil. However, I don't ever recall a great oak or any sort of significant tree being related to Ulasil. Maybe I'm wrong. We read the Earthseeker as well, and it just talks about Millwood is a land of primitive earth worship where chieftain knights served as high priests. So we know that Ulasil was a nation that used sorcery, their golden sorceries, and nothing in that item description would indicate Ulasil, primitive earth worship, completely different. And we got the Quakestone Hammer, of course. Wielded by Millwood Knights with a head of naturally formed stone. The Knights of Millwood would fight hand in hand with the earth itself, and this weapon, amongst the oldest in all Millwood, is symbolic of that relationship. So again, it reinforces the point that this was a land of they were very much of the earth, and they used the earth as part of their fighting style. Very fun weapon. So the skill Quake is really fun. Burrow hammerhead into the ground with a great slam, and use strong attacks to upheave earth, creating a shockwave that rumbles like a mighty war cry. Pretty good stuff. When we give the Shrine Handmaid the ashes, we'll read the item description of their suit of armor. I've also farmed up a bit of followers stuff. The lore of the followers goes hand in hand with the lore of the Abyss Watchers, and it adds a little bit of flavour to the Abyss Watchers background, but it's nothing really earth-shattering or groundbreaking. So, helm worn by the Farron followers. When a warrior of Farron fell to the Abyss, the tall, lean followers with their hollowed eyes quietly appeared in groups to hunt them down. Farron and his watchers fell to ruin, but the followers survived as a wandering pack of hollows. So it just gives a little bit of flavour to who you can see the helm of the followers is sort of tall and pointy, not unlike the helm of the Undead Legion. So whether they were in direct employ of the Undead Legion, or because the Undead Legion were sort of what do you call it, vigilantes going out and hunting out the Abyss on their own accord, and then it's a case of who polices the police. Well, the followers police the police, so if any of the Undead Legion fell to the Abyss whilst fighting it, the followers would appear. But whether they were in direct employ of the Undead Legion, knowing the danger, or whether they were, again, another vigilante group who were policing the Undead Legion, I don't believe we find out. I don't think I've got any of the other weapons. Did I have the follower's spear? I'm not sure that I do. I can't remember where you get it now. Oh yeah, the followers weapon. Yes. Oh yeah, because we get it right in this area, don't we? Long spear wielded by the Farron followers, balanced to allow for throwing. The followers attacking groups surrounding foes, shielding themselves and thrusting their spears at their foes. On a final command, they hurl their spears at the fallen foe to give the retired warrior an honourable send-off. Sounds very reminiscent of an Iron Pineapple gank montage. I don't think I've ever seen someone do that, like a gank of 4, all throwing followers' javelins at people. Could be quite funny. So again, nothing really that, you know, revealing about the followers. It's all information we already know. Right, I'm not going to force you to watch me go through all of Ashes of Ariandel, because you already seen me go through it with Pathfinder. I will put in all the significant items and fights that I have. I'm going to go through this area unembered, so we don't get any invasions. I want to get through this part quite quickly. I don't want a really long, drawn-out episode. So okay, I will carry on the level, and we'll have a little chat when I find something significant. Okay, this snow break here. This is sort of. I think this really sets the tone for the entire DLC. I'll get this out of the way now. I really like Ashes of Ariandel. I know a lot of people are quite down on it for being short, and I would say yes, it is probably the shortest of all the Dark Souls DLCs. However, what it lacks in length, it makes up for in good quality gameplay. I feel there's the 3 main areas. There's the snowfield and all the areas leading up to what do you call it, the chapel with Sister Freed. Then there's the Corvian settlement, which is great fun. It's good verticality laden explorative area. Not a lot of combat, quite a lot of exploration. And then we have the final stretch of the forest, the followers, leading up back to the chapel and stuff. And that's a good stretch of combat. Fairly ganky, yes. However, I've never found it to be too overwhelming. I just think it's just a very, because it ties nicely into the Ring City, and it comes as like a 2-part. I think this is a really good DLC. I really enjoy this DLC. So feel free to disagree. I know many do. Right. In this area, a good ring to have is Slumbering Dragon Crest ring, so you can sneak up on this dog. If you get him fast enough before he finishes Howl, the Howl is what attracts the other dogs. So if you can get it's the slightly bigger wolves that will start the wolf gang. So if you can kill him and get him out of the way, that's always a good tactic. Right. Now this is one of the cooler stretches of combat in Ashes of Ariandel, the Millwood Tower. So this is sort of like the area where this faction sort of are residing at this point. I mean, we find Millwood Knights throughout the entire of the DLC, but this seems to be where their faction sort of has been residing whilst during their stint in the Painted World. And I really like the Millwood Knights as enemies to fight. Good for going backstab fishing. Interesting, you can see on... oh, you can't see it, they disappear. On their backs there is a white tree. Not dissimilar to sort of the white tree of Gondor in Lord of the Rings, interestingly enough. Ixodril, what was it called? The Tree of Life from Nordic mythology. I think that's, you know, given that they've got fucking the stereotypical, non-historically accurate horns in their helmets and stuff, I think we can safely say that this sort of faction is based heavily off Nordic mythology. you know, talking about great ethereal oaks and, you know, all that stuff. This is one of the cooler views in the DLC. We can see the chapel up there in the distance when we're by the tower. And interestingly enough, if we look behind the tower, we will find a blessed gem. So, if we're talking about the Millwood Knights and them being worshippers of the earth, and maybe you can construe that as being sort of a faith, something based on faith, then having the blessed gem there may make sense. Oh shit, I've triggered the wolves. Right, I'm going to just peg it and I'm going to pick the bow up and we're going to get out of here. There's 2 Millwood Knights and a bunch of wolves here. Right, very good. Right, okay, good. Let's read the Millwood bow. Very, one of the probably it is the best great bow in the game, purely because of its weapon art, and its damage is extremely high as well. I don't know how. Yeah, a dog out there. Don't know how the damage compares to other fully upgraded great bows. If you optimize all your stats to go with each great bow, I don't know which one has the best base damage. I presume it's probably the Millwood or maybe the Dragon Slayer bow. Anyway, here we go. Millwood great bow. Great bow crafted with black oak and wielded by Millwood Knights. Only specialized great arrows can be fired from the bow. It is said that the Millwood Knights used these to face the sworn enemy, the Abyss Dragon. So this is another piece of information that could potentially relate Millwood to Ulasil, because we know Karth, not Karth, what the hell am I talking about? Calamite, sorry, both begin with a K. Calamite was an abyssal dragon who terrorized Ulasil. It wasn't the one that caused the destruction of Ulasil. That was due to fucking Manus and people of Ulasil being, you know, tricked by Karth into waking him up. But potentially another link to Ulasil there. Maybe Millwood was an older than Ulasil. That could be an interesting parallel to draw, to say that Millwood was like a civilization that happened before Ulasil. But then that doesn't explain sort of the mention of the Abyss Dragon. But so their sworn, when it mentions their sworn enemy in that other item description, and it says there it's the Abyss Dragon. Whether that is Calamite or another dragon, we don't know. So again, you could very reasonably draw similarities to Ulasil and say, oh well, Millwood was just another name for Ulasil. But because we don't have any signature golden sorceries, the link is quite tenuous. Right, let's trigger the dog ambush. Buff on. There he is. Big old doggo. Okay, this isn't Sif. It is not Sif. I don't know what significance the wolves have in this area, and particularly the large wolf and its subsequent boss fight. Oh shit. I think it's just a gameplay gimmick. There we go. Get down to half health. Fucks off. I think it's just a gameplay gimmick to introduce the boss, which is itself. Oh my god. Right, okay, we're not fighting all these. Fuck that. Silver Cat, go. Yeah. I don't see any particular lore significance to the champion Gravetender and that boss fight. I think that's just there as sort of a creative way to introduce the undead arena. And the large wolf encountering the large wolf at 2 separate stages throughout the DLC is just sort of a nice little gameplay gimmick. Okay, so I think we got all the stuff that's related to Millwood now. So there is a Titanite slab I can get down in the Corvian village. I think which we'll get that now actually. the Titanite slab that's related to yeah, that Corvian that asked us to burn his world away. He will be outside the little house that we found him in, and he'll give us a Titanite slab. So we'll go and do that now, I think, before we fight Champion Grave Tender. So as this Corvian looks over the Ariandel Chapel, we've done his bidding and we've started the fire that will burn this world away.
Oh, my, thank you. I can hear the crackling from here. The sound of my home. The painting of Ariandel burning away.
And he gives us a slab for our troubles. Thank you very much, mate. So it's interesting to think, does the burning of the painting mean that all the denizens of the painting would now perish? Is he knowingly sentencing himself to death in order to preserve his home? That's an interesting question to think about.
When the world rots, we set it afire for the sake of the next world. It's the one thing we do right, unlike those fools on the outside.
So my feeling is that yes, that by destroying the painting and burning it and painting a new world, you are in fact sentencing everyone who currently lives in the painting to death, and I think that makes more of a noble sacrifice. They say, you know, they sacrifice themselves in order to build a new world for the next generation. That's a noble intention, I think. So it's just saying, they say it's the one thing that they do right, unlike those fools on the outside. So I think that's referring to, you know, the world that we're from, outside, where we instead of destroying the world when it starts to rot. So when they're talking about the rot in relation to our world, is talking about the flame, the first fire fading, and the world basically turning hollow and going to shit. Basically, the world is technically rotting away. It's becoming corrupted, and we, instead of letting the world die, we prolong the agony of keeping that world going. And it's interesting because sort of to destroy this world and to, you know, end its suffering in the painted world, we burn it, and it's the same, and it's like the complete opposite on the outside world, where we're burning, setting ourselves on fire to link the first flame in order to maintain the rot or the misery of the current world on the outside. It's interesting. It's very interesting parallel. It's one of the reasons I really like this sort of the painted world concept from 1 and 3. Very interesting parallels.
When the world rots, it's the one.
Yeah. Okay, so we're in the Corvian settlement now. So the Corvians in this area, they are not unlike, well, they are very unlike the Corvians we've met on the outside currently, because these ones are very much bird-like in appearance, and the ones outside have got sort of humanoid faces. They sprout the wings and everything, but they look completely different from these guys. These are sort of bird-like creatures. So let's read the Corvian weapons. So we have the crow talons, or the crow quills, and the crow talons. They both have the same item description, so we'll just read one of them. Thrusting sword wielded by the Corvian knights, and special paired weapon. When twin-handed brandish 4 thin edge blades in the left hand. Oh, when twin-handed, I think it means when two-handed, brandish the 4 thin edge blades on the left hand. Completely fucking useless quill dart. Fucking brutal in PvE when it's used against you, but when you use it in PvP, it's fucking useless. It's a cool weapon though. In their infatuation with Sister Fried, the Corvian knights swore to protect the painting from fire, and to this end they took to execution of their own brethren. So it looks like the Corvians were split down the middle as to whether they should sacrifice their world and, you know, themselves at the same time in order to build a new world from fresh, and those who, you know, weren't willing to sacrifice themselves in this world in order to, you know, cure it of the rot. They would rather the world rot, but they still live. Which kind of makes it sort of makes the story. It's like, it makes a lot of sense to me, because, you know, do you sacrifice yourself for your next generation, or do you, you know, sort of selfishly keep the world alive and prevent future generations? Yeah, so what Sister Fried was up to when she was when she came into the painted world, she left the Church of Londor. She is an ashen one. She is an unkindled one, and she left the Church of Londor, the Sable Church of Londor. She deserted them, and she found her way into the painted world because I don't know whether she was abandoned by the Church of Londor, she was deliberately kicked out of that, or whether she left on her own volition. I can't recall right now. I might have to read some more descriptions about her. But she finds that she winds her way into the painted world. Actually, we'll have a look at the Chillbite ring because that's one of the items that she gives us. It's native to Kareem, increases frost resistance. The ring would never grace Fried's hand for the painting, and its frost became her home. So she adopted the painted world as her home, and she wanted to protect the painting. And as noble cause as that was, she was sort of noble to a fault, really. So instead of, you know, wanting to sacrifice the painting to build a new world, because she had adopted this place as her home, she's very protective of it, and she doesn't want to see any harm come to it, even if ultimately the rot would consume the painting and it would just die a slower death than if we were to burn it down. So Sister Fried, she is not a bad person. She's the only thing, she's doing it to protect her home and the people that she's adopted. Unfortunately, although she may have noble intentions, she would ultimately have doomed the painting to a very slower, more painful death than if she had just, you know, ripped the band-aid off and burnt the painting down. Right, so we got that Titanite slab. I don't think there's anything else in this area or in the next one that I particularly need to get. So let us go back to the chapel, and I need to talk to the little girl, and then we need to go down and fight Champion Gravetender. Right, okay, so we're back at Ariandel Chapel now. The fire that is to consume the painting is still roaring away where we disposed of Father Ariandel. Father Ariandel is a very interesting character, actually. It looks like he is actually a Corvian. Whether he was the original painter of the painted world, or what sort of the original painter of this iteration of the painted world, sorry.
Cannot paint a world. Those absorbed by fire must not paint a world. Don't worry. I haven't forgotten, Mother.
Those who are not canned to fire cannot paint a world. Those who are absorbed by fire must not paint a world. I haven't forgotten Mother. So, sort of this girl's mother is been a point of contention amongst the lore theorists. I'll get back to Father Ariandel in a moment. Sorry, I was distracted. I forgot she starts speaking. My guess is Priscilla, just from fucking Occam's razor. Like, I don't know if we can get a good look at her, but if you can get a closer look at her model, you can see she's quite scaly. I don't know if you can see because her feet are moving. But yeah, she's quite pale, she's scaly, and she has sort of like weird funky eyes, so you could say she is sort of a hybrid child, not unlike Priscilla, like a dragon child. So it would make sense that Priscilla be her mother. Like that would make perfect sense, given that she is currently a resident of the painted world. Why she was a prisoner of... I guess she was a prisoner of Fried and Wilhelm, because they wanted to preserve this current world. They didn't want another world. They didn't want to burn this painting down, and they didn't want it being a new world being painted. So they kept her prisoner. Maybe she would be killed. Maybe out of respect for Priscilla, they kept her alive. Who knows? But it would make sense that this is Priscilla's daughter, and that's something I would quite like to believe. Right. So she's looking at her new canvas, the one where she will paint a new world. And it's interesting because you can see that triangular white thing there, and if it reminds me of the original large painting that you find in Anor Londo when you first reach the painted world of Arian Mist, where the painting I'd have to have a look at it, but it's sort of, that is the kind of shape the painting takes, with the sort of the buildings of Ariamis in this sort of triangular shape. Maybe I'm just being crazy. Anyway.
I can hear the fire crackle, and soon I will see it. My thanks, Ashen One. I will finish the painting of a cold, dark, and very gentle place, so that it might make a home for someone someday. My thanks, Ashen One. I will so that
Interesting.
it might make
There
a
is
home
another.
for someone
I don't know whether the piece of
someday.
dialogue gets overridden by the virtue we have the second DLC, but I remember she says something about Gale going out to find the dark soul of man as pigment for the painting. I don't know what the trigger is for that dialogue, or whether I waited too long after killing the boss, and maybe I should have talked to her straight immediately after killing the boss, then maybe she would have given that dialogue. But yeah, she mentions about Gale being sent, she sent Gale out to find the dark soul of man. And fucking hell, when I first did the DLC and I beat Free and I heard that dialogue and her talking about the dark soul of man, I was like, oh shit boys, we're in for some fucking lore. I was well pleased with that. Got me really, really hyped for the second DLC. Right. So she is waiting for a pigment in order to paint a new world. So we will deliver that eventually. But first, we've got a giant doggo to kill. Oh shit, there it is. Alright, there we go. Fucking hell, follow us. Oh no! Oh god! Alright, that's why I never pick up the follow the saber. Fuck off. Right, there we go. Alright, okay, we're home free now, boys. There we go. Okay, so over there, we can fight the Champion Grove Tender. There's a few items we need to get over on the right here, and we have some dastardly crabbos we need to dispose of. Huh. Oh, there's the Titanite lizard I killed. Yeah, nice. Right, we won't rest at the bonfire. I don't want to respawn those Millwood Knights. Okay, if you want an interesting way to cheese, you could just run past the crabs. There's nothing to stop you from doing that. I think you get a crystal gem from one of them, so there's a good way to cheese them. If you spawn multiple of them, I think there are 3 you can possibly spawn. A good way to cheese them is to lure them over to this branch here and just constantly do jump attacks on them. Oh my! No, crab gank! Crab gank! Jesus. Okay, this usually works. Fucking hell. Okay, that usually works. So we tried that way. Let's try running past them. That normally works for me. Constantly doing jump attacks on those guys. So you know what? I don't want that crystal gem that much. So I'm sorry, crabbos. Rather some of the shittier encounters in this DLC, and I was just singing its praises. Right, this one is a unique tree. If you listen, you can hear it crying. I mean, some people have speculated because, actually, yeah, that's something we didn't read. The ice related spells, like we get Frozen Weapon, and we get Snap Freeze here. It mentions that Pontiff Sullivan was actually from the Painted World. Some people have speculated that this crying tree, I think there's some cut dialogue for this tree that talks about her son, and people speculate that maybe this is Pontiff Sullivan's mother. One of the spells left behind by the young sorcerer Sullivan before leaving the Painted World imbues right-hand weapon with frost. Sullivan was born and raised inside the painting, yet has little use for his frigid homeland since he has not yet experienced loss. So that gives us a nice little bit of information on Pontiff Sullivan there, and he has quite an extensive timeline throughout the game. He has his fingers in lots of pies in this game. and so his origins are from the Painted World. And sort of, he does have those, when we fight him, those sort of branch-like tendrils that come out of his back. Maybe a relation to, if this is in fact Pontiff Sullivan's mother, a relation to that. But there's no real indication in game who his parentage is. Sorry, Mrs. Cree. So we get Snap Freezer. So again, it states implicitly that Pontiff Sullivan was a sorcerer. I think it's the same. Sullivan before leaving the Spider Rockets, cloud near freezing mist. Sullivan was born and raised in the Painted World. Yes, except same spell description, unfortunately. So he was a sorcerer, and it's interesting where we're going to be going next. The Irithyll Dungeon. It seems like that they locked up sorcerers in Irithyll Dungeon. It's very, very, very interesting because Irithyll was sort of connected to Anor Londo. Anor Londo being, you know, the home of the faith in Gwyn and all that. They were very against sorcery and sorcerers, and they sorcerers and clerics were very at odds with each other throughout the game, throughout all the games really. And so they were locking up sorcerers in Irithyll Dungeon. We find lots of sorcery paraphernalia in Irithyll Dungeon. So if Pontiff Sullivan left the Painted World and the painting was still located within Anor Londo, he was a sorcerer in Anor Londo. He was a fish out of water there. So they locked him up in the dungeon, and then he escaped the dungeon using the jailbreaker's key, and he found the profane capital, which lit a fire within him. I can't remember which item description says that. It says it lights a fire within Pontiff Sullivan, a burning ambition. He would then go on to take over Anor Londo, feed the old gods to fucking Aldrich as payback for locking him up in the Irithyll Dungeon. That is my take on Pontiff Sullivan and his motivations. I think he is motivated a lot by revenge. He was born in the Painted World as a sorcerer. He was kicked. He had to leave or was kicked out because he hadn't experienced loss, and he didn't fit in. So he goes out into Anor Londo. He is imprisoned, and had the shit kicked out of him in Irithyll Dungeon. He discovers the profane capital. He gets an burning ambition inside of him, whatever the fuck that means. And then he goes on to fucking destroy and dismantle the old royal family. That makes a lot of sense. Pontiff Sullivan is such an interesting character in the lore. And like I said, he's got his fingers in all the pies, and there's lots of evidence to show that he... Oh fuck. He's involved in Lothric as well as all that other business in Irithyll. Right, let's go and fight Champion Gravetender. Right, let's use a Hermwood Bone. Right, here we are. So after we've done this, we'll get the Champion's Bones, so we can have access to the Undead Arena. Maybe we'll do some dueling, maybe not. Okay, let's Ember up. Stick on Milk Ring. And let's just fucking do it. Oh, summon sign. Hello, Subaru. Oh, we got summoned. Oh yeah, my souls are still over there. Let's go get those first. As far as bosses go, the Champion's Gravetender and the Wolf are pretty fun to fight. They're not a bad boss by any means. They just don't have any real, for me, I don't see any real lore significance to them. They don't really have any link to the actual world. It's just a neat boss to introduce the Undead Arena. And right. Good thing I've got a straight sword here, so I can have access to the weapon R1 shield break, because that's really, really strong spell hot. Fuck off, doggos, please. There we go. Okay. Here we go. Maybe I should have put the Hornet Ring on. I'll do. Oh shit. Oh fuck me. It's aggressive. Alright, he's probably gonna call the wolf. Alright, now that he's summoned his wolf buddy back, he goes quite passive and he uses his... Oh shitty bollocks. He uses sorceries. Don't know if he can heal himself, I'm pretty sure. Oh, fucking Christ. Right, I need to get this douche out of the way. Where is he? Here we go. There we go, he's dead. Skill up. Let's buff up. Fire would probably be better for this one. Oh, I should have got damage in. Alright, now he goes super Psycho Doggo. He else is running around. Nonsense. Right, let's get out in the open. I need to get out in the open. Alright. Come on. Quite predictive with oh shit, no! With his sprints, you have to roll slightly before you think you should, like that. Having 100% block shield also helps. I remember having such difficulty with this boss. Oh shit. No, frostbite. I should have rolled out of that. Having such difficulty when I first battled this boss. Because he sort of sprints around so much. Right, sorry doggo. Champion's Bones and Valor Heart. Might use Valor Heart a little bit later. It's not a weapon I've ever used a lot. The shortness of the sword is a little bit annoying to me. Right, let's read the items. They don't have a particular amount of lore to them. So we got Valor Heart. A weapon once wielded by the champion of the undead match. A special paired set consisting of a broadsword and lion shield. The champion fought on without rest until he lost his mind. In the end, only his page and a lone wolf stayed by his side. So, the champion is the one who is in that grave there, and his page, you know, his servant boy, is the one that we fight. And it's very the sword design itself is very reminiscent of like a Roman gladiator's sword. You know, I think the sword was called a gladius, and the small shield depicting a lion. Very classical Romanesque weaponry, and I think that's, you know, given that we unlock the undead arena, that's very you know, poetic, I suppose. And we get the Champion's Bones, which actually gives us access to to that. Charred but warm bones of a champion. Burn at the Firelink Shrine bonfire to participate in undead matches. Long ago, an undead declared a fight to celebrate their undeath, so to preserve what remained of their souls. So it was that the undead matches were born. The merit of an undead is measured in deaths. Could there be any greater gift for such a creature than to fight, than a fight that has no end? I'm not going to get into the discussion of dueling versus invasions vis-a-vis PvP viability. That is something that has been trodden to death over the years. Like the argument to say that the only intention for PvP in this game is invasions is, I think, a little incorrect, given that I don't know. The PvP in this game, it cannot be considered competitive. There is no ranking system. You are not matched by your ranking or your ability. You are matched purely always with randoms throughout the game. The undead matches and undead arena dueling is not meant to be taken seriously, and I agree wholeheartedly with that. I'd say the intention of PvP is for invading. That being said, if they didn't want you to duel, they wouldn't give you the red sign fucking soapstone, and let's read that now. Be summoned to another world as a dark spirit and defeat the host of enemies to gain strength of fire. Not all dark spirits are unsporting, or they wouldn't make use of this soapstone. So it's sort of whether you ascribe to no heals and duels is another thing, and all that. But like, if they didn't want people to have sort of matches 1v1 on of their own volition, not unlike a duel, whereas an invasion, you're not really anticipating being invaded, and it's an impromptu thing. You didn't sign up really. You don't press a button to say, okay, I want to PvP now. It just happens. Whereas Red Sign Soapstone, what you're getting into when you summon a dark spirit, and usually it ends up being a duel of some description. So to say that the developers don't acknowledge or have any intention of people dueling in this game is wrong. I think they wouldn't give. I know they gave the arena to players in Dark Souls 1 because that's what they asked for. They said, hey, we want a nice environment so we can do our 1v1s without fear of interruption or healing and all that, etc, etc. So they gave them the Undead Arena, and Dark Souls 2 went full dueling tryhard with their PvP, and to the point where invasion, it seemed like the dueling was the intended PvP state for that game. I mean, some people really enjoyed that part about Dark Souls 2. Me, not so much. I think they really dumbed down the invasions in 2, because 1, no whole red eye orb, and 2, in order to get cracked red eye orbs outside of farming them from the PvE, which is a ball ache, and even more of a ball ache when you have to fucking join the Covenant of Champions so you can infinitely spawn the enemies, because they despawn. Like, the way to get red eye orbs is to fucking duel, so they really pushed the dueling aspect of PvP in 2. And in 3 they returned to more of a chaotic invasion-based PvP. But still, the Red Sign Soapstone is there. They gave us the Undead Arena in the DLC again, whether by popular demand or whether that's what they intended to do all along, I don't know. But dueling is a part of PvP in this game, like it or not. It's not balanced. Absolutely, it's not balanced. Certain weapon combinations will generally always beat out other ones. But it's fun. Like, I think there was. So I said I don't want to get into it, but I'm getting into it now. But I know Saint Riot did. He got very salty over Revan619 and some of his videos. And I don't like Revan. I think he's a twat. I can say that as a fellow Englishman. He is a twat. But he got really salty about when Revan made a video about saying Ultra Great Swords are useless in PvP, and Saint Riot got quite upset about that, quite incensed by it. And I kind of agree with Saint really, and saying that when you're going into the Undead Arena, you're not always going to go up against PvP meta lords, and to say like the only way you will see success in the Undead Arena is to use sort of the very small selection of meta weapons that are available in the game, and that is demonstrably not true. You can go in there with an Ultra Greatsword, and you will, against most randoms, if you are skilled enough, you will come out the victor. So yeah. Anyway, sorry, rambling. Dueling, invasions. I like dueling a little bit. Invasions are my bread and butter. I find them more fun. More things happen in invasions than in dueling. Because in dueling, the only things that happen is A, you spawn in, you will do your gesture, you will buff, the other player may or may not gesture or buff, you will feel each other out for a few moments, trying to get your spacing right and seeing how aggressive the other player is going to be. Then you will try and out-passive and outspace the other player, and then you'll win or you'll lose. You'll gesture, they'll gesture, next match. That's all that ever happens in dueling, whereas in invasion so much more can happen. Anyway, right, let's give the
well met,
the ashes
Ashen
to
One.
the handmaid.
How may I be of service? Gracious, passing fine ash thou'st given. Let this ash bestow nourishment. I only hope these new wares content thee.
Thanks, love. Right, so that gives us access to some refined gems, 3 refined gems. I'll get them later, actually. Those are always useful. And we have the Millwood set here. So I believe... Oh, actually, they might have slightly different item descriptions. Helm wore by Knights of Millwood, adorned with antlers believed to grow from the blessed beast of the ethereal oak. When the fabled Millwood forest was discovered, it was a vacant ruin. The only thing left was the ethereal oak, stood rotting. No corpses were discovered, and their belongings lay neatly on the ground. Right, that gives us a lot of good information about Millwood and what happened to Millwood. Adorned with the antlers believed to grow from the blessed beast of the ethereal oak. So there is a beast associated with this ethereal oak tree. Again, I think this is all harkening back to Norse mythology, and maybe that's what we can take away from this. I think searching for answers within the game is probably quite fruitless. I think we should be looking to Nordic mythology for this. It was a vacant ruin. The only thing left was the ethereal oak stood rotting. If we can find this oak within the game series, then maybe that will give us some more answers. Armour worn by Knights of Millwood. The char bronze breastplate and the thick black cape are adorned with the symbol of the ethereal oak. Let's buy that and we'll put that on so we can see the symbols of the oak. Worn by Knights of Millwood. Blah blah blah. Okay, let's buy all this stuff. And it also gives us access to the Millwood Great Arrows, which we didn't read. Heavy, steady great arrows made of black oak that deals heavy damage but has limited range. Can only be fired using a great bow. It is said that Millwood Knights use these to face their sworn enemy, the Abyss Dragon. So yeah, more about the Abyss Dragon. I think they're the strongest of all the great arrows, actually. But yeah, they have a slightly short range. You don't need to use them in order to get the Millwood Great Bow weapon art to work. But I think they look a lot cooler than the other great arrows, to be honest. Right, let's also buy those 3 refined gems. I'm going to need them since I'm going to be kind of going for a quality build for this. I can't be asked to farm refined gems.
Ashen One.
Alright, let's put the armour on, shall we? There we go. You can see the great tree with its roots. This is one thing that Pathfinder pointed out to me whilst we were playing. Because he was quite quiet, I don't know if you could hear it, but the symbol of the great oak on the back of the Millwood set looks not dissimilar to that that design we find above Wolnir's boss room, where you touch the chalice, and above the old Demon King's entrance to his boss room. We find that sort of tree with deep roots design. So maybe they could be related. I don't really see how, given that they talk about forests and trees and all that stuff, and that nowhere near relates to Karthus or Izalith. But again, I think that's supposed to invoke Norse mythology sort of pangs. So anyway, thank you very much for watching. We've polished off Ashes of Ariandel, so next time we'll head deep into Irithyll Dungeon, and then the Profane Capital. So thank you for watching and listening to me ramble. Sorry, no PvP in this episode, but we had a lot of PvP in the last 3, so I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you later.